So for question 5, I don't think we've done one exactly like this before, but we have looked at ratio. Okay, so let's forget about this £150 at the moment. So let's divide £150 into the ratio of 4 to 11. Let's put some context around that. So we've got a person here, and we'll call them person A. And then we have another person here, and we'll call them person B, with a slightly longer neck. Okay, and they're going to share some money out. Okay, so person A gets £4 and person B gets £11. And we say, well, that's in a ratio of £4 for every £11 person B gets. Okay, so that's not just a fixed amount. Let's say person A now gets £8, they've doubled their money. Well, to keep it in the same ratio, person B is going to want to double their money too. So that's £22. So person A has got 2 lots of their original 4, and so does person B. They've got 2 lots of their original 11. So it remains in the same ratio. Okay, we've seen this before. As long as we multiply or divide both sides by the same quantity, they remain in the same proportion. Okay. The important thing to remember here, though, is that the initial ratio is worth £15. Okay. Now we saw that if I took 2 lots of that ratio, it's of course now worth £30 because I double both quantities. Okay, and 8 add 22 is 30. Now I want to know then if I'm going to divide my ratio into £150, what do I have to do, or how many lots of this £15 do I need to get to 150? Okay, what would I have to multiply my 2 ratios by so that when I add them together at the end, I get to 150? Now most of you will spot that straight away, because if I take my 15 and times it by 10, that gets me 150. 15 times 10 is 150. So I went back to my initial ratio and went, okay, let's give person A 10 times as much as they originally had. They would have £40. And if I give person B 10 times as much as they originally had, they would have £110. So we've kept it in the same proportion because we multiplied both sides by the same amount. And we can see now if we added these 2 numbers together, 110 at 40 gives me that £150. And we've divided the £150 into the ratio of 4 to 11, which looks like 110 to 40 once we scaled it up. So this person here, person A would get 40 and person B would get 110. So our challenge of ratio is once we've figured out how much money is in the initial quantity, the initial ratio, we need to figure out how many times we can get that into our overall quantity, and then multiply it up. Okay, question 6, what's the highest common factor of 30 and 40? Some of you will be able to just spot that. You might have just made a mistake if you got it wrong by missing a few factors. Let's go through our factors for 30 then. Let's do them in pairs. So we've got 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 4 doesn't go into 30, 5 and 6, and then we pass that threshold there. It won't be 7 because we've already come down to 6 on this side. So as one side goes up, the other one comes down. Okay, let's do 40 as well. So 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 3 doesn't go in, 4 and 10, 5 and 8, 6 doesn't go in, and then 7 won't go in either. Okay, so what's our highest common factor? What's the biggest number that goes into both? Let's have a look. It looks like it's going to be 10 there. Okay, so we want the factors of numbers that go in pairs normally to make a number, and the highest common one is the one that's the biggest and in both lists. Right, so for question 7, what's 90 times 120? Well, we've seen in previous weeks we can change this calculation to what is excuse me, 9 times 10 times 12 times 10. So that's our 90, and that's our 120, and that's the same answer as what's 9 times 12 times 10 times 10. Now, the only reason I'm dragging this out is because I don't want to say add 2 zeros for the answer, that's all. Okay, so 9 times 12 is what we'll do. So 9 times 12, well, 9 times 10 would be 90 from our times tables, and then 2 more 9s. So let's just break it down. 9 times 10 is 90. And then 9 times 2 is 18. So that's 12 lots in total. That gives us 108 if we add it together. So we've got 108. And then 10 times 10 is 100. So we moved 108 twice to the left of the decimal point. We could add those two 0 placeholders in, and we would get 10,800 there as our answer. Okay. So for question 8 then, simplifying. Let's take out our different coloured pens for this one. So we read through, and it's just how many lots of each of these letters do we have, and these letters represent a quantity. We've got 12 lots of a letter A here, or number A, and later on what happens? There, we've got plus 2A. Okay, so we'll always associate the operation to the left of the term there with it. So in total, then we can sort out our A's. Let's write them in blues. In blue, so I've got 12A. Later on, I add 2A. So in total, I've got 14A. Let's see what happens in red with the B's. So I start at positive 4B here. It's quite nice because they're actually written together. And then I take away 6B. Okay, so if we think about a number line, I'm starting at positive 4, and then I lose 6. Take away 6. Where would I end up? Well, 0 would be here, so I would take away 4 to get from 4 down to 0, and I have 2 more to take away 6 in total, so I end up at minus 2. So I'd have 14A, but then I'd have to take away or have negative lots of, is perhaps a better way to think of it, 2B. Okay. So that's how you choose what sign goes in the middle. It's not arbitrary. It depends how many lots of the second letter you have. Is it positive or negative? Okay, so question 9. Find the missing angle in this triangle. So we start with a number. It's important to triangles. All the interior angles of a triangle add up in total to 180. So we start with that fact in maths, and then we work from there. So what do we have so far? Well, we've got 77 plus 58. Let's add up, see what we've got so far. So 8 adds 7, that's 15. And then 5 adds 7, well, that's 12, and 1 more makes 13. So 135 degrees used up so far. I need to use up 180 degrees in total to fill all my angles in my triangle. So let's see what's left. So we do 180, take away 135. Now, to be honest, I don't think I would use this method to do this. I would add on. So I'd say, what do I need to add on to 135 to get to 180? So I would say add 5 gets me to 140, and then add 40 gets me up to my 180. So I can see that I have to add on 45 degrees. So that must be the size of my angle. But if we're going to do it this way, let's borrow from our 8. So we have 10 take away 5 is 5, 7 take away 3 is 4, and 1 take away 1 is nothing. So there we go, we get our 45 degrees. Finally then, I bet if you haven't done any algebra before, question 10 is nice and straightforward for you. So this here is an expression, okay? It represents something, so it might be a length on the side of a shape, for instance. We don't know the value of x, so it's not an equation, we're trying to solve anything. It just represents a certain value. So we're going to take some number x, and then we're going to take away from that number, we'll take away 9, okay? So now they're saying, well, what would that expression's value be if x was 18? So we literally say, okay, well, rather than doing x minus 9, I'm now going to say, well, I know what x is, it's 18. So we do 18 and take away 9, and then we get the value, which is 9. So the value of the expression is 9. Okay, so well done for completing all 6 weeks if you've done so. Probably have if you've got this far. And have a lovely last week of your summer holidays. And I'll see you in a week's time.